to Silverstone, the home of British motor racing, for the first day of racing of the 2023 Silverstone Festival, carrying on the long and heady tradition of historic racing at the British Grand Prix circuit. And if last year is anything to go by, this historic junior opener may well be one of the races of the weekend. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven, alongside me Alistair Douglas, second generation commentator at this circuit. We've got the third generation here working on the notes, and last year, Alistair, this was better than double espresso. It really got the blood pumping.
It did indeed, yes. On both days, actually, we opened with the Formula Junior race, and it was a cracker. And it was a Michael O'Brien win, both races actually in the end, but he didn't take the lead until the very, very last corner of the very last lap of the race. And what an emotional win it was for Michael, who sadly lost his mum not many months before, and he dedicated the wins to his mum on the podium.
Well, there is our grid, the last two cars on it, Sharon Edelman and Philip Buhofer. Edelman will start. She actually qualified out of session, but Philip Buhofer has withdrawn his car. However, we have a fantastic grid of, well, the weird and the wonderful, as well as the slightly more recognisable cars like Coopers, Lotuses and Brabhams will be well known. Going through shot, you can see the Malak U2, driven by Ray Malak, the son of Sir Arthur Malak, who designed the U2s. And there are a whole bunch of very limited production run, and in a couple of cases one-off cars, front-engined, which Formula Junior started as, and then the rear-engined revolution arrived in these cars as it had in Formula One, driven by likes of Cooper and Lotus. So the front runners, as in the real world of Formula One or every other racing format, are the rear-engined cars, the little small cigar tubes with the engine right behind the driver's ears. And the cars that are taller, with the driver sitting a lot further up, those tend to be the front engine cars, where of course the transmission has to go past, or in some cases underneath, the driver. And those have that late 1940s, early 50s look of something like a Van Wall or a Maserati 250F, where you can see the longer nose and the driver sitting much more upright. So this will be a combination of the two generations of cars, and it is absolutely thrilling racing. One of the things we always talk about with these cars is that they look like miniature Formula One cars. If you were a certain age, and I imagine that Keith and I both grew up with Scalextric cars that looked largely like this, but in this era, Formula One was a 1.5 litre category. So the car that's leading the field round, Sam Wilson's Cooper, for instance, as a Formula Junior car, 1100cc Climax engine. As a Formula One car, 1500cc four-cylinder Climax engine. So the two were almost interchangeable, and the chassis is a very, very similar chassis to what would have been raced by the older brothers, if you like, in Formula One. So his Lotus 2022, so Lotus 20, Lotus 21 was the type number of the Formula One car, and that was exactly the same chassis, but just with a different engine and slightly bigger brakes. So they are not just visually, but literally smaller versions, or the same version, but a smaller engine version of the F1 car of the period.
Yes, and whilst the rear-engine cars definitely used the same chassis, so we see the same type number used in a car that raced in Grand Prix with the likes of Sterling Moss and Jim Clark aboard, the front-engine cars look like their larger cousins. They're generally very much smaller, so they're not the same chassis. But I can see towards the back there the red car with the driver sat right up in the air, almost like in an armchair, with a red helmet with a white band. That's the Stanguellini, which is very much a copy of the Maserati 250F, which we'll see racing in the Grand Prix races later on. And they, as you would expect, they copied their bigger brothers for the general design of the cars, but with a much smaller engine up front.
Now this grid and all the grids this morning are coming out of the old Silverstone Formula One pit lane. The cars would have left there in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And this afternoon's cars are all garaged in the wing, the modern Formula One pit lane. So these guys would normally come round and do half a lap to go to the grid as their formation lap, but because the track is a little bit damp and it was dry yesterday, an extra formation lap behind the safety car as they will come to the grid, and that gives them a chance to spot where the damp patches may or may not be. There hasn't been rain since yesterday evening, and that's pretty much dried out, but there was quite a heavy dew and a bit of mist this morning, so there will be a few damp patches. And particularly the curbs. Curbs hide water and then feel a bit like ice. Painted water is, or wet paint rather, or wet watered paint is not a good place to be, particularly when you've got such narrow tyres as these cars do. They're about 5.5 inches wide, that's it. So you've got a very small contact patch, and staying off the curbs is going to be quite important. With the limited power that these cars have, they do have a very low overall weight. The driver makes up actually really quite a large percentage of the overall weight of the car, but it does mean that keeping your momentum up is absolutely critical, because you can't just hoof it out of the corner with a huge amount of torque or power, because you don't have any.
This is a classic shot from Silverstone, looking up the Hanger Straight, and what a sight, as we can still see cars filing into Beckett's behind the leaders, who are already halfway down the Hanger Straight. What a field we have. We've got 54 cars on the grid, and they'll make their way now into a 2x2 formation ready for the start, which will take place on the international pit straight, so just a couple of corners away.
Yeah, 54 cars starting, and that is not our biggest grid of the weekend. Most of them will have well north of 30 or 40 cars, and the maximum capacity will be up to about 60 for some of our races. All of these cars, small, light, narrow, nimble, and really critical to keep your momentum up. And that's what makes this racing so exciting, because there is plenty of room for manoeuvre, and these cars do move around a lot under the drivers. So it is Sam Wilson who leads us. He's got that Porsche psychedelic purple and green helmet as he brings the cars to the line to get the Silverstone Festival underway. First race of the 2023 Silverstone Festival is about to get underway. The red lights are off. Sam Wilson leads the field of 54 Formula Juniors down to the first corner. Martin Haven and Alistair Douglas trying to work out who's going to come through from the outside of the front row. Double winner last year, Michael O'Brien in the Lotus 27 puts his nose in front. The red and gold of a Brabham right behind, and Sam Wilson, car number 53 with the orange noseband, goes around the outside. He said before the start of the race, Alistair, he wasn't particularly bothered whether he led early on or not. It's going to be about finding out for the first couple of laps where the grip really is and isn't on the slightly damp edges of this circuit, and then working his way in, and he's got time to do so as the cars stream down the Wellington Straight for the first time.
An initial very good start indeed from Tim De Silva from row 3, but he's dropped back to 4th place now, and coming up on the inside is Horatio Fitzsimon. Now it was Horatio and Michael O'Brien who's leading, who had that fantastic dice, and Sam Wilson is in there as well. 3 drivers well known for their abilities, and the gold car of Sam Harrison. Sam Harrison, another star, young driver, a star of Formula Junior and other Formula in the Renmax, which is a very unusual car we've not seen, I don't think, at the festival before. And it's Michael O'Brien who leads into Copse Corner for the first time, followed very closely by Horatio Fitzsimon, and Horatio goes tighter through Copse Corner.
Yeah, Horatio had a little wobble turning into Copse, but Mike O'Brien ran out very wide indeed. So Sam Wilson in second place. It's the red and yellow Lotus 22 of Horatio Fitzsimon who leads into the Beckett's S's for the first time. And these cars look dwarfed by the vast expanse of the Silverstone circuit. This is almost exactly the same circuit that the Grand Prix cars use in Formula One. We just open up the final element of Club Corner to allow for the fact that these cars have much less in the way of braking. Is that O'Brien pulling over at the side of the exit of Beckett's, right at the top of the straight? I think it was. Michael O'Brien ran out very wide. I wonder whether that was because he was in neutral and couldn't find the gear he wanted. Meanwhile, the gold car, Simon Harrison, from 5th on the grid, harassing our poleman Sam Wilson for 2nd place as leader Horatio Fitzsimon sets the pace out front.
And they go into club corner through that slightly opened out element you talked about, which leads them into the right-handed element of club and back round to complete the first racing lap. And it's Horatio Fitzsimon who leads, and in second place is Sam Wilson, and third is Samuel Harrison. And there, I'm afraid, is the sorry sight of Michael O'Brien, last year's double winner, pulled over at the side of the road in that car which he's not driven before.
Yeah, that's a real shame. He ran out very wide in Cops Corner, which is most unlike him, and I did wonder whether he just selected a box full of neutrals, and that may well be the case. Might be something else. I mean, these cars, yeah, they're 60 plus years old, and not all of us still function quite as well as we might have done when we were new at that age, but nevertheless, Horatio Fitzsimon just easing a fraction away from Sam Wilson in second place, and Samuel Harrison in third place. Now, they've been joined by Alex Ames coming from 8th on the grid in the first of the Brabhams in the race, blue with the red noseband. So he's taking the race to the Lotuses and that gold Renmax. Another great-looking little car, even lower and flatter, the frontal area, than the Lotus. So we're starting to settle down. This is our lead quartet, and they've got a little gap. Tim De Silva is about a second back, a challenge for third place. Through goes Alex Ames, gets ahead of Harrison.
Alex Ames was racing here last week, actually, in a completely different formula and on the short circuit, so he knows the parts of the circuit very well indeed. And he's made his way, as you say, past the very unusual Renmax, the gold car of Samuel Harrison, who's pretty much pushed everything before him this year in Formula Junior racing throughout the season.
And right behind this quartet, they were side by side into Cops Corner. Tim De Silva in the green and gold Brabham, and Clive Richards in the red Lotus. And Lotus got through, Richards the red nose. Tim De Silva now pulls out on the inside as they come down the hanger straight behind these guys. And there's more trouble with the Ronnie Peterson lookalike helmet. That's the car of Andrew Beaumont, his Lotus 22 at the side of the circuit. I wonder whether there was a little bit of contact there. We've got another car off as well in the gravel, a little further back in the field, and Stuart Monument's Lotus 18, one of the older cars in the field, the first of the rear-engined cars.
Meantime, the lead battle is now 3 cars, with Samuel Harrison not that far behind in the Renmax, the Australian-built car, I think based on the Lotus 22, so it's got good form. Yep. But the leading car of Horatio Fitzsimon, the red car, easy to pick out, and that turns through the tight right-hander at Village, then it'll be tight left, and Sam Wilson looking for the inside out the loop, but doesn't make his way through there. But that opens the door a little bit for the third-placed car, that of Alex Ames, as they turn through Aintree onto the Wellington Straight, the long run down into Brooklands, which is an excellent overtaking opportunity.
And Ames with the fastest lap last time round. That's how he's jumped up onto the tail of Sam Wilson. A car with a broad red stripe down the centre, but nothing to be gained now. He's slowed down to the speed of the cars in front. Horatio Fitzsimon is leading the race and setting the pace. Sam Wilson looks fairly content to sit behind him for another 2 or 3 laps. There's another 14 minutes of the race still to go, so it'll be about another half dozen laps, and they will bide their time. The problem with these cars, they don't have aerodynamic wings, but they do punch a little hole in the air, and when you've got so little horsepower, the aerodynamic toe of the car in front is going to make a difference. And it is a 4-car battle for 3 places on the podium. Now, obviously, none of them are interested in anything other than the top step of the podium, but right now it'll be about keeping your powder dry and trying to figure out where you're going to find an advantage over your rivals. The battle for 5th and 6th, Richards Lotus still ahead of De Silva. So Clive Richards in the red Lotus 22. You'll just see at the top of the shot as they come onto the hanger straight out of the Chapel curve, just ahead of Tim De Silva. There he is, and De Silva hovering right behind him in the family Brabham BT2.
Sam Wilson had a little look down the inside there of Horatio Fitzsimon into Stowe Corner, but no room there. But in fact, the third, fourth and fifth place cars do run a little wide, and that part of the track there looks a bit damper than the line that Horatio Fitzsimon took as they turn now into Club Corner. They've all bunched up again, and it's Fitzsimon who leads from Sam Wilson in second place, and Fitzsimon gets a little bit sideways. That gives an opportunity to Sam Wilson, but also to Alex Ames to come up a little bit alongside. And look at Samuel Harrison, who just a lap ago was a few lengths behind. He's now right back with them again. This is absolutely classic Formula Junior racing.
And we're watching the lead group, but all the way through the field of 50 plus cars, this will be repeated for just about every position. There will be some tiny gaps and lots of very close dicing. Sam Wilson runs out a little wide and just keeps his nose in front of varying different lines here. Of course, when the cars are so short and so narrow particularly, there's an awful lot of width to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It doesn't look like it with a modern Grand Prix car on it, given the speed and the width of those. But these tiny machines, yeah, they're barely two bodies wide, so you've got a lot of room to manoeuvre. And very noticeable that the Red Lotus of our race leader is often using a very different line to anybody else, and I think he trusts implicitly that Sam Wilson is not going to stick his nose on the inside as he sees that Horatio Fitzsimon out front is taking a wide sweeping arc. Well, they come across the first of the back markers, so already going a lap down. That's Sharon Edelman. She had a little problem with her car in practice. In fact, that's not Sharon Edelman, that's another car further back from her, but there's a couple of cars that had problems in practice and are struggling to maintain any kind of pace. Leaders continue, 11 minutes on the clock.
Wonderful as they come into the Beckett sweepers, mentioned by many drivers who race all over the world that this is one of the greatest sequence of corners anywhere in the world. And Horatio Fitzsimon races quite a lot in America as well, and he loves coming to Silverstone. And the four of them now onto the Hangar Straight, and the track looks, as you say, very, very wide for these little cars, and they're able to take different lines. And but we can see there is a slightly drier line, isn't there, on the outside of the circuit there as they turn into Stowe Corner. And once again, Horatio Fitzsimon on a very slightly different line, much tighter through there than Sam Wilson, but Sam comes out quickly and closes up to the back of Horatio as they turn into Club.
Yeah, very different lines indeed from the two drivers, and that's partly driving style, partly what the car demands. Horatio in a big slide. Just got a little bit of damp on the tyres maybe. Sam Wilson takes the lead sort of by default really, by not getting it wrong and also setting a new fastest race lap, 2 minutes 24.8. Let's put that into perspective. The group Richards and De Silva, who are battling for fifth, are doing 2 minute 27s. I was about to say that the leaders are lapping at least a second a lap quicker than the battle for fifth place. It's now more like 2 seconds a lap. They've just gone by the very upright front-engined Stangalini, so they are now lapping cars that are in the 40s in the field rather than in the 50s, such as the relentless pace of the leaders.
The leaders coming down, one car ahead of them is a slower car. They'll be lapping that, and Duncan Rabadiati in the Alexis in the orange car to the left of the track, one of the earliest cars in the race, but they all make their way past the slower car lapping them, and it's very tight there through Brooklands into Luffield now, and through they go. It's still Sam Wilson leading from Alex Ames in second place, Horatio Fitzsimon third, but I would suggest you watch out for that gold car, Samuel Harrison in fourth place. He's shown that he can close up to the leaders, and a young man he is, but huge amount of experience.
Yeah, Sam just got a little break there, the leader, as they got around the Huffaker BMW, the pale blue car of Richard Spritz, that was not quite sure whether he should stay in the middle of the track or use the racing line that the leaders were hoping to use. But as it happens, you never get far away. Sam Wilson now being caught by the train behind. Alex Ames, the red car of Horatio Fitzsimon, and then Sam Harrison in fourth place. Again, two cars working together. You can see Horatio Fitzsimon there actually pushing along the gearbox of Alex Ames as they came through the Beckett's S's. They're coming up to the next couple of cars in front of them. They're battling for 43rd place as the leaders approach. And It's always a little bit of a tricky moment. Sam Wilson runs out very wide indeed through Stowe. And there is the battle just in front.
And it's Alex Ames now who's taken the lead from Horatio Fitzsimon. Just nips through on the inside of Sam Wilson there at the historic club corner, the left-handed element of it. And so it's now Ames from Fitzsimon, from Wilson, from Harrison as they come up the Hamilton Straight. And sadly another retirement.
That's Richard Spritz that they were passing halfway around the lap. He was going very slowly and he has pulled off now. So you don't get eliminated just because the leaders pass you, but clearly he had an issue.
And I noticed Horatio Fitzsimon started to become a lot more sideways in the corners, and that lost him the lead a couple of laps ago. I just wonder whether his tyres have started to just wilt a little bit under the pressure that he's been putting them on, but he's still in second place. He's got past Sam Wilson. Samuel Harrison is in fourth place in the gold car as they make their way through some more lapped cars down the Hanger Straight, and pulling out to the left of the first of those lap cars, not the Hanger Straight, sorry, the Wellington Straight, turning into Brooklands and Luffield.
That's Tim Metcalf's Cooper, car number 17, and another familiar colour scheme, another Cooper with the traditional green and white Cooper stripes as they go around the outside of 33. That's Stuart Tizard in a Cooper T56. And the leaders keeping up this relentless pace, still in the 2 minutes 24s, 25s. The next group, 5th and 6th. De Silva's got back ahead of Clive Richards, Tim De Silva, but they are still lapping in the 2 minute 27s. And they're the only cars that are, because the group 8th, 9th, 10th and below are doing 2 minute 29 laps. So the leaders are relentlessly 4 seconds a lap quicker than other cars that are still in the top 10 in this 50-strong field. Now, you saw yellow flags out at Copse Corner. Somebody's sitting in the gravel there, didn't see them go off, but the leaders now with another group of cars in front. And this is all part of the game, is dealing with those. Much easier when you're behind than when you're in front, trying to figure out how to keep the door shut and wriggle through. Horatio Fitzsimon down the inside at the end of the Hanger Straight into Stowe, takes the tight line again, and that's often why he's more sideways exiting the corners, because he goes in very shallow and then has to tighten the line a little. They're coming up behind Justin Fleming's Lola Mark II, the very upright front-engine car, designed by Eric Broadley. Lola went on to be a very successful car manufacturer throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And again, look at the very upright front-engine car as they all sweep by. Hand out to the cockpit from your race leader, Alex Ames, to say thank you for seeing us and giving us room. I think the quick guys understand just how difficult it probably is for the guys who've got their own battles going but are just a little slower and being caught by the leaders. You don't want to lose your own battle, but on the other hand, you don't want to ruin somebody else's race either.
And of course, they've all been there. When they started out racing, they would have been the slower cars, and they've gradually worked their way to the front. But a change of lead now, because we've got Sam Wilson, and I think in all that lapping down at Club Corner, Sam Wilson managed to sneak through on the outside. Alex Ames in second place. Horatio Fitzsimon, who was almost leading, is back in third place. But Samuel Harrison, I'm afraid, is starting to lose touch now, and that's slightly worrying, because you'd normally expect him to be right there with the leaders right through to the last lap, when maybe he makes a bid for the win. But Horatio Fitzsimon once again twirling away at the wheel, all arms and elbows, as Innes Ireland said many years ago. And great to see. You can see the drivers working away in these cockpits.
It only takes catching the traffic in the wrong place, like here coming into Copse Corner, where you catch a slower car and it takes 5 miles an hour off your top speed, and suddenly Sam Harrison will be right back in the battle with the leaders. And they didn't quite get through cleanly there. Sam Wilson goes through first, Alex Ames in second, the red and yellow car, Horatio Fitzsimon is in third. But the gold car, again, not catching traffic in the ideal place. From Maggots into Beckett's, he scythes through behind. So Samuel Harrison trying to be a little bit bolder in traffic. Big slide from Alex Ames as they come out through the final element of the Beckett's S's onto the Chapel curve. Now going by, what's that, 77, 99, 77. That's Buhofer, who qualified out of position, has now moved up from the back of the field into the early 30s, so he's having a very strong race.
spin for Horatio or half spin for Horatio Fitzsimon.
He's been getting more and more sideways, and he drops out of the top 3.
So that puts Samuel Harrison up into 3rd place, and Horatio will now double his efforts, but the lead battle is absolutely joined, and it's Sam Wilson leading Alex Ames, and then the gold car at the back of the screen there is the Samuel Harrison car as they come through in towards the tight right-hander at Village.
So we got 2 arch protagonists in period, and still 60 years later, Lotus versus Brabham. So the Lotus out front, Sam Wilson, and the Brabham, Alex Ames, giving chase. Ames, the British Racing green car with the bold orange stripe down the centre, car number 66, and our race leader, Sam Wilson, car number 53, in the green with a slightly narrower orange strip. They're coming up behind another group of midfield runners who have got their own battles to fight. Sam Wilson gets tight on the inside, just manages to escape down the inside of Luffield, and loses out because, again, he guessed the wrong way. Alex Ames tucked on in the inside. It's a great example of how the leader has to make the decision first, and if you're just a fraction behind, you can see that the gap's going the other way. Sometimes you lose out as the leader because the guys that you're catching, you're the first to get there. They don't always realise what's going on quite as quickly as you might hope.
And unlike in modern Grand Prix racing, the slower driver doesn't get waved flags and penalties for not getting out of the way. They just basically stick to their line and let the leading cars work their way through. And as Martin's just said, if you guess the wrong way, as Sam Wilson did at Stowe Corner there, the lead can be lost in an instant, but he's still there, he's still in contention. We've only got a minute to go. So
this will be the penultimate lap. They should just about get to the line before the checkered flag comes out. The last lap from Sam Wilson, by the way, a new fastest lap, 2:23.0, but just after that, on this lap, he lost the lead. So 46 seconds. They will start another lap before time elapses, so they shouldn't see the checkered flag this time. So they will head on to the final lap as they come past the Grand Prix pit lane. And Alex Ames leading from Sam Wilson. It is between these two. There's not a lot of traffic right in front. Again, another half spin there from Horatio Fitzsimon as he tries to catch Samuel Harrison for 3rd. The gold car in 3rd, Samuel Harrison, car number 44. And then the red car with the yellow wheels, 68, the Lotus of Horatio Fitzsimon, at increasingly large angles of the dangle at every turn. As we watch Alex Ames holding off Sam Wilson. Wilson looking to the inside of the loop, but knew the door was going to close there. So he's got half a lap left now to try and sort this one out and come out victorious.
And they make their way through yet another slower car, but pretty clear down the Wellington Straight towards Brooklands for them now. And Sam Wilson will be trying to stay in the slipstream of the hole in the air that Alex Ames has punched, and he's got within a length and a half as they turn into Brooklands, now up to the double right-hander at Luffield. And Sam Wilson goes for the tight line. He comes up alongside Alex Ames, and I think he's going to get through there. What a move there from Sam Wilson, but no, Alex Ames is still alongside and has the slightly quicker line out of Luffield into Woodcote Corner, and they're still side by side as they go down the old pit straight. And they look wonderful, absolutely wonderful, looking at each other. Bit of a wave there from Alex.
Well, that's not the Mansell Senna Portugal intimidatory glare. That is a friendly smile across the two cockpits. What a fun race we are having. Last lap of the race. Sam Wilson leads into the Beckett's S's. There is traffic in front though. They've got a couple of cars and then there's a little gap, but there is more traffic on the Hangar Straight. So Alex Ames trying to look around the outside of Sam Wilson. And there is the next gaggle of cars, and they may catch them right as they get to the end of the lap. It could be those front runners, or those tail enders rather, that decide the action. The gold car of Samuel Harrison is 3rd. Horatio Fitzsimon has not caught him yet in 4th place. Sam Wilson leads out of Stowe for the final time, but the worrying sight for him of slower cars in front. How close does this get? Not sure that Alex Ames is going to catch him on pace. He needs Wilson to be held up. I think it's just about going to work out for Sam Wilson through Club Corner for the final time. The checkered flag awaits, and the first race of the Silverstone Festival is won by Sam Wilson in the Lotus, the man who started from pole position up and down the lead for a number of times, and a big applause for Alex Ames from him, and for him from Alex Ames. A great race to the flag from the two of them. Samuel Harrison in the gold car in third place in the Ren Max, and Horatio Fitzsimon, the red Lotus with the yellow wheels, just off the podium in fourth. The rest of the field still racing hard for the line. Tim De Silva takes fifth ahead of Clive Richards as they finish. And again, they wave to each other. They've had a great dice, just the two of them, their own private battle, and there will have been dozens of those all the way down the field. You can see cars coming through in pairs, in little clumps. But out front, Sam Wilson, the first winner of the 2023 Silverstone Festival. Well, these cars are always worth waiting for, and whatever time of day they go out on track, definitely worth trying to catch trackside, because there's so much variety in the kind of cars we're watching, but also so much close racing between the drivers, and so much respect. It's a thoroughly entertaining prospect. And that the cars, we're still only halfway through the field. There are still cars streaming across the line at full speed as our leaders enjoy their slowing down moment.
We didn't see much of them during the race, but the winner of the front-engined element of the race was Andrew Hibbard, who started in pole position, and second was Ray Mallock.
So Andrew Hibbard finishing 10th overall. That's not bad at all for a front-engine car. Ray Mallock in the U2 Mark II. The car's originally built by his father. So finishing down, in fact, he's just been shuffled down another spot as they race to the checkered flag. They haven't quite got there yet. So there's a few strays and waifs to pick up at the side of the circuit. You just saw another car pulling off. Hopefully that was after the checkered flag. And there is the slightly mangled Lotus 18. That's Stuart Monument's Lotus 18. And there, car number 51, Andrew Hibbard, the Lola Mark II. That rather pale leaf green with a pale yellow noseband. Very pastel-y colours. So our front-engined winner. Again, Eric Broadley at Lola, following just a few years behind the Coopers, Brabhams and Lotuses of the world coming into constructing cars. But Lola cars in Huntingdon really took off, particularly as some manufacturers of customer racing cars, and as everybody did in those days, building cars for just about any category that you can imagine. You will see a whole host of different Lolas racing this weekend, particularly sports racers. Very successful indeed. Car coming to a halt in the pit lane just below us, one of the front engine cars. In fact, that's Harinder De Silva's Lola Mark II. It's just failed to proceed as it entered the pit lane. Harinder, the father of Tim De Silva, who raced to 5th place. Well, there you go, mouth-watering prospect, these cars always, and that race did not disappoint. You see the tall Stangalini Formula Junior of Tom de Gres, and there's another car sitting at the side of the circuit.
Michael O'Brien, who's now got a chance to have a look. It looks like it was an engine or gearbox problem. Michael experienced at looking after these cars.
I think possibly gearbox. He ran wide in Stowe, and if you select neutral there, then you don't have the drive, you'll go off. Here's the result then of the historic Formula Junior race, the curtain raiser for the Silverstone Festival 2023. Sam Wilson, the pole sitter, and the last lap regaining the lead from Alex Ames in the Brabham. Sam Harrison completing the podium in the Australian-built Ren Max after a half spin, took Horatio Fitzsimon just out of the lead group. In their private battle for 5th, Timothy De Silva just ahead of Clive Richards, and it was Andrew Hibbard's Lola Mark II that was the first of the front engines, the older cars, across the line. with Ray Mallock in 18th place in his U2, originally built by his father, Arthur Mallock, and lots of battles all the way down the order from front engine and rear engine cars of a mass manufacture, in racing car terms at least, from the likes of Brabham, Cooper and Lotus, or the unique one-offs. Stangalini, the Alexis, the Di Tommaso, the Huffaker. Andrew Beaumont didn't make it through the first couple of laps in his car. And Michael O'Brien, expected to be one of the front runners, last year's double race winner in the Formula Juniors, also off early on. Right from the very start, there was a little bit of caution in the Formula Junior race for our pole sitter, Sam Wilson. Not quite sure where the damp patches were going to catch everybody out. Front runner Michael O'Brien running very wide, and smoky departure from the circuit on the first racing lap, taking one of the expected front runners out of the action. In the Red Lotus, Horatio Fitzsimon, the early race leader, from Sam Wilson, Alex Ames and Samuel Harrison. But an increasingly wayward Lotus allowed his rivals through, and eventually a place in the top three disappeared from the clutches of Horatio Fitzsimon with a half spin. Meanwhile, Lotus versus Brabham was the race out front. Lots of respect and enjoyment from Alex Ames and Samuel Wilson, and Wilson taking victory in the first race of the weekend by a hair's breadth.